You know what needs to be done, but you're stuck. You have too many tasks, and even thinking about them brings dread, fear, uncertainty, and definitely stress. It can all add up to that P word, procrastination, or simply put, a delayed start. I'm Teresa Jansen. I'm a board certified master mental health coach and the host of the Radical Abundance podcast. And I'm here today to help you get out of that procrastination rut and back on the road. First, let's start off with a little bit of grace. There is no shame in putting off an activity that needs to be done. In fact, it is your brain's natural defense mechanism. It activates when you just have too much to do or when there's some other underlying cause. We're going to talk about that today. But putting things off doesn't get us anywhere, and it doesn't help you be who God has created you to be and to do the kingdom building activities that God has placed right in front of you. So we need to get out of those ruts of procrastination. But before we can get out of the rut, it helps to know what got us stuck in the first place. So let's start with what it is that you know needs to be done. We know that there are things that have to be done, but we're having a hard time getting started or moving forward. I want you to think of a task right now, something on your plate that has you a little bit stuck, or maybe even a lot stuck. What is it? Say it out loud. Write it down right now. You got it? Okay, great. Now, what is the emotion you feel when you think about that task? When you can identify how you're feeling, it will help you when you create a strategy to help to escape that rut. Is it dread? Do you experience fear? Is there confusion or uncertainty or overwhelm? For now, we're going to deal with three different kinds of procrastination ruts: dread, fear, and uncertainty. By the way, if you have a different emotion I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear from you. Just send me an email at teresa@teresajansen.com and tell me what it is you're experiencing. Okay, first, let's deal with dread. Frankly, this is the most common and perhaps the easiest to deal with. Dread is comes when you know the task, you know how to do the task, you know it needs to be done, and yet you just can't seem to get going. It could be things like going to the gym, doing your taxes, editing your manuscript, or even doing the dishes. Large or small, these are tasks that need to be done, but you just dread doing it. There are a lot of ways to handle the dreaded task, and I'm going to give you two today. The first is to set up a reward for yourself. This works best if you are a person who's not prone to rewarding yourself usually. Pick something relative to the significance of the task. You can't reward yourself with a vacation for just doing the dishes. Those two things are too different in size and value. So they need to be somewhat equal or equitable. Likewise, you don't want to sabotage yourself with a reward that doesn't help with get the goal of the task. So you can't get an ice cream cone for going to the gym. That would defeat the goal of doing the task in the first place. Think of a reward that you wouldn't do anyway. For small tasks, it could be a cup of tea in the good china, or a walk somewhere beautiful, or a bubble bath, or some time with your favorite book. For a larger task or a series of tasks, give yourself something bigger. Then let yourself enjoy that experience when you have finished your dreaded task. The second dread busting tool is to set a timer and do the task for a specific amount of time. Most of us can do anything for a little while. This works great for larger projects that you can break up into pieces. Choose a time frame that works with the task and your schedule. 30 minutes of manuscript writing or tax receipt sorting can go a long way. If the task doesn't get finished in one time slot, then take a break and set the timer again. You can start again in, let's say, 5 or 15 minutes. Be careful not to set times that are too long for your work style. Some people need to work in short chunks of time, like 15 minutes at a time, and then a 5-minute break. Other people might be able to dedicate longer times to a project, but even those need to be scheduled with breaks in between. Find the work rest balance that works for you. Next, next, let's talk about fear. Do you have a task that you're putting off because you're uneasy about the outcome? Is there a phone call that you need to make to mend a relationship? Do you put off opening envelopes because you don't know what's going to be inside, or maybe you do know what is going to be inside? Maybe you've put off putting in an application or a submission because you're afraid it won't be accepted. Whatever it is, fear is best handled by finding the courage to face it. I know, easier said than done. Start by thinking of exactly what you are afraid of. Now, how likely is it that what you're afraid of will actually happen? Some people are afraid to fly because they're afraid that the plane will crash, yet statistics say that air travel is one of the safest means of transportation. A reality check can help you face your fear. Next, ask yourself if not doing the task will change the outcome. In most cases, the answer is no. In fact, most of the time, a delay will actually make the situation worse. If you don't submit that manuscript, it will never have a chance to be published. If you don't open the mail, there will be consequences. Answering these two questions may be enough to get you out of your fear-based rut, but just in case, I have two tools to help get you going, and they are very similar to one another. After you've talked yourself through the reality of your fear, then muster the courage to bring it out into the open. Tell someone you trust what it is you're afraid of. Be wise in selecting that person to share with. It's not appropriate to share with a person who is going to gossip or even increase your anxiety by the way that they tend to respond to situations. If your fear is something that can't be shared with a person, or you don't have a safe person to share with, it takes me to the second tool. You can share your concern with God. Even if you do share with a person, still share your concern with God. Tell him all about it. He knows you, and he knows the situation, and he loves you. Ask God specifically for the courage needed to get out of your fear rut. Finally, let's talk about those confusing tasks that you just don't know how to get going. It could be something like creating a marketing campaign for your book or fixing a leaky faucet. You might be delaying because you lack some technical skill or the confidence that you could even do the task. Well, let's start by first asking, why are you the one to do the task? Are you the right one to handle this if it's something that's outside of your skill set? Maybe it's something you should outsource, but okay, let's recognize that's not always possible. So, if it is beyond your skill level and there's no one you can hand the job over to for whatever reason, think about how you can gain the skill needed to get going. Do you need to read up on the topic? Do you need to get a coach to help you plot a course through a complicated or long process? Take a class to learn a new skill. That's another great idea. Confusing ruts can definitely be a challenge. Most of the time, they are caused by not knowing where to start. If that's the case, getting an outside perspective from a coach or someone who has traveled the road before can be a big help. You need to approach confusing ruts bit by bit. Then you can get out of that rut and begin to move forward. Now, let's take a moment and put this all together. At the beginning, you identified a task where you are stuck in the rut. Which of the tools have we talked about that can help you get out of that rut? Write it down. While we're talking about these ideas, I'm sure you've thought about some other tasks, large or small, that need your attention. Take a moment and create a rut busting strategy for each of them that came to mind while we were talking. Again, write it down. When you write things down, you get them out of your head and put them in a safe place where they can't cause you as much stress. Get those tasks out of your head and down on paper. You can also take the opportunity to prioritize them a bit. Remember that prioritizing is a balance of what needs to get done and what can feasibly get done. If you don't have time to do your top priority task immediately, then move on to the next one that you do have time for, or create a plan to break that big task into small chunks so that you can begin to chip away at it. Do you have a few things written down now? I hope so. And for each of those tasks, I hope you've also had a chance to write down a strategy to try and see if that can help you break out of that procrastination rut. I do want to mention that planning for how to get out of your rut does not replace actually doing the work to implement the plan. You've probably heard of the phrase analysis paralysis. For me, I love planning and organizing, but it doesn't do any good to make a great plan if I never implement it. So don't spend too much time strategizing before you actually do something. Make a time frame part of your strategy. Put it on the calendar if needed. Remove distractions and tell the people in your life that you're busy right now. And unless it's an emergency, you'll get back to them later. Once you've implemented one of your strategies, take some time to reflect on how it went. Did it work? How could it have gone better? What are you going to do next? Remember, too, in the midst of all this work, you need to keep that work rest balance in mind and make some me time. Love yourself and enjoy the journey. Thank you for spending time with me today. I'd like to invite you to head over to my website at teresajansen.com and get a free copy of my guide, Get Out of That Rut. When you do, you can also get a free 30-minute consultation with me to help you get started. I'm Teresa Jansen, and I wish you a radically abundant day.